Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter,
This is Dave.
and we've got a ton of spoilers once again. Today's May 27th, 2021. They just keep throwing massive bombs every day, it seems like, with spoiler season.
We're
So
looking at like
let's just start off with
22 cards.
the latest of spoilers, the ones that were just announced literally like an hour ago. First one we have is Sanctum Weaver. Sanctum Weaver is 1 green, 1 generic mana for a 0/2. It is an enchantment creature. You can tap Sanctum Weaver, and you can add X mana of any one color where X is the number of enchantments you control. That is a very good card in Enchantress decks.
I think that's going to be a theme from a lot of the spoilers that we've seen today. Is that a lot of them are very, very good in Enchantress. I think they're really pushing that theme. I don't think it's really modern playable. I think it's a really cool like limited archetype and just kind of like sub theme within the set. Um, a lot of those cards I think are probably going to be much better in Commander than what they are going to be in Modern though.
I agree with you. I will say so far, green as a color is winning Modern Horizons 2.
Interesting.
Yep.
All
I
right.
feel
Well,
like the strongest cards so far have been not okay. Let me rephrase that. Not the strongest. Well, let's say it. Strongest cards. They're green.
all right. I'm curious to hear more about these strongest cards.
Yeah, we're gonna get to them later. Moving on. Let's talk about the next. You have any other thoughts on Sanctum Weaver before we go?
I honestly don't. I think that this card is really solid whenever it comes to maybe EDH. I mean, one of the more important things to notice here is that it is in and of itself, it's an enchantment creature. So it's 2 mana, and you can at least tap to add 1 color of any color, or 1 mana of any color, just based on the fact that it is going to count itself. And if you do have more enchantments, it just kind of gets added value from there. But that's about it.
Yeah, the 0/2 is a huge drawback. Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
let's just move.
for a mana dork, you're not being faced with a mana dork anyways. You're going to be tapping this thing down, so I think its stats are irrelevant.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on to Master of Death. Master of Death is a 1 black, 1 blue, 1 generic mana for a 3/1. It is a zombie wizard. When Master of Death enters the battlefield, surveil 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Master of Death is in your graveyard, you may pay 1 life. If you do, return it to your hand.
I
Look
think
at
this card is very good.
Look at the flesh ladder.
I think this card is really good. It surveils, so it has the ability to fill in your graveyard. It's also a zombie, which is kind of relevant. I feel like this is already something that might slide its way into. I don't necessarily want to say dredge decks, but I mean maybe potentially dredge decks. And yeah, the flesh ladder there is like super creepy as you mentioned it. As I just continue to stare at this thing. I don't know. I think this is a really dope card. I think this is something that you definitely need to be playing it around or playing around it. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I cannot talk tonight. But yeah, honestly, I think this thing is just super solid.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good too. Looking at the artwork before we move on from this, I'm getting a vibe of you pay 1 life, he gets out of the graveyard, so he's like leaving. Get it? 1 life up the ladder.
Yeah, climbing the ladder.
Exactly. No, but I do think it'll see play. 3 mana for 3/1. That does a bunch of stuff. Is real good. Let's just go ahead and move on to your favorite card, which is green, by the way. I
It
did
is
say
green.
green was powerful. Go ahead and tell us what this card is.
So for a single mana, you do get the Noble Hierarch. This is the, I guess, type shifted version of Noble Hierarch. It is a Goblin Shaman. It's a 0/1 with it Exalted, and you can tap it to add a black, a red, or a green to your mana pool. Noble Hierarch has been a fantastic card for years. This is not something that I was expecting to get within this set. However, I absolutely love me some Jund. And this is the Jund version of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up as many copies of this as I probably possibly can and spend way too much money on this card. My notes on this is I took 3 and I put down reasons to like this card. Number 1, it's dope. Number 2, it's dope as. And number 3, it's dope as fuck. So, I mean, that's kind of what I have to sum up with this. I also love
Yeah.
the fact that the artwork on this mirrors Noble Hierarch. It's just kind of like they're shifted. So, for example, like he's holding the staff with the other hand. Um, I think this card is amazing. I think that this card 100% will immediately see modern play. I think it might see play in Jund. I think this 100% will see play in any kind of shaman stack. I think it's really good whenever it comes to zoo decks. I don't know if this is going to slot in with goblins, but it has the potential to do so as well. So
Yeah, like you
amazing
said,
card.
I agree with everything you just said. I do want to touch on something we talked about in the last video and how they make the lowercase h in the title. I've looked it up. That is something they've always done for some reason. It's the font, and I hate it.
So the H is just always lowercase in the old font.
Yep. It makes zero sense.
One other little tidbit about this card too is that the artist who did the illustration for this is the same artist who did the illustration for Noble Hierarch, which I think is really dope.
They probably told him, they're like, hey, do another one.
Oh, they totally did. They showcased like the sketch version of this one late last night, early this morning as well, and it basically says do the exact same thing over again, but this time just make it a goblin.
That's awesome. All right, let's continue with another green card, Dave. You see this? This is crazy.
I mean, we're 3 for 4 at this point.
This is Yava Maya, Cradle of Growth. It's a legendary land. It says each land is a forest in addition to its other types. So this is the green version of Urborg.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about this one. What are your thoughts?
I think it's dope, dude. Things that need forests, things that bump because of forests, this is huge.
I mean, like green is definitely the color to do this. I don't know how I feel about. I feel like green is getting a lot of like color shifted versions in this set of famous black cards. So I don't know necessarily how I feel about it. I mean, this card it makes sense to me as it being a green card, and I definitely can see some ways that you could take advantage of it. I know that the typical way that you're going to go about it with black, with like Urborg, is with Cabal coffers, be able to net an absolute insane amount of mana.
Mm.
I don't know right off the top of my head what works with this in green, but I mean, green is the color of land, so I know that something out there in the game is going to take advantage of this.
Oh, absolutely. There's, like I said, there are different things that say the toughness is equal to the number of forests you control, the power is equal to the number of forests you control. There's a bunch of those cards. So this is, it's pretty big. Let's just go ahead and move on. Which one is this, Dave?
Next up, we have Territorial Cavu for a red and a green. It's a star creature Cavu with domain. It states that Territorial Cavu's power and toughness are each equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. And whenever Territorial Cavu attacks, choose one. Either discard a card. If you do, you draw a card. Or exile up to one target card from a graveyard. I love this little dude.
Yeah? Why is that?
So for 2 mana, this guy, okay, realistically, he's probably not going to come down as a 5/5. But I mean, if you are playing with a greedy mana base, if you are playing with a bunch of shocks, it's very possible that this is a 2 mana 3/3 to even potentially a 2 mana 4/4. And it has additional upside on top of that whenever it does attack. Also noted here, it states attacks, not deals combat damage. So this thing just has to swing. It doesn't even actually have to get in for combat damage. It's going to start looting for you, which is really, really powerful. And then also on top of that, I'm sorry, it's going to start rummaging for you. So you're going to discard that card first, and then you'll draw a card afterwards, which is really powerful because you're going to start being able to kind of just make sure that you're constantly hitting gas, so you're not drawing any of the dead cards. Or the other thing you're being is that you are able to exile some of the cards out of your opponent's graveyard, which is another really cool effect. I think that both of these are really powerful. I think that this is stapled onto a pretty cheaply costed creature. I can definitely see this thing seeing play, especially maybe in like a zoo deck. This is the second time I've mentioned zoo decks today. I think this card is great.
Yeah. Once again, I agree with everything you just said. The big thing is, yeah, when it doesn't say combat damage. When it attacks, draws you card. That's huge. What something we also you taught me today. It's basic land types, not basic lands, so snow lands do not count.
No, Snowlands do not count. But if you are playing around with something like Modern, I mean, you're probably playing with shocks anyway. So if you are playing this in like maybe a Jund deck or maybe like a Naya deck, you're utilizing maybe like a red-black shock. So you're playing the Blood Crypts. You could also be dropping something like Stomping Grounds. You could potentially be playing anything even like a Temple Garden. So I mean, just taking advantage of those shocks to get that additional basic land type in there. This thing can easily be a 3/3 or a 4/4. I'm not expecting this to be a 5/5. And then, of course, if you are playing wastes, in addition to all of this, it can hit this to a 6/6. But I think that's also kind of magical Christmas land, in which you're getting a little bit too greedy for an effect like this. But I can definitely see this being a 3/3. And in some situations, I can see it being a 4/4 for 2 mana. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. uh, that's right. I agree with everything you said. Oh my god. Let's just move on to next up. We got a monkey. We got Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. This is a legendary creature, monkey pirate. It is a 2/1. It says when Ragavan deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until the end of the turn, you may cast that card. It also has -1 with 1 red, 1 generic mana that says you may cast a spell for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste and is returned from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So
What are
yeah,
your thoughts on this card?
this is the monkey from Aether Revolt. It was the Kara Zev Skyship Raiders monkey on the art. Pretty cool callback. But I think this card's cool. I think it's a 1 mana for a 2/1. It's got an opponent deck hate. It's pretty cool. I like it.
You're looking at this card totally different than me. I think this might actually very well be one of the most pushed and powerful cards that we've seen of the set so far. And I don't really care about the end until end of turn. You may cast the exiled card type of thing. What I do care about, however, is the fact that number one, this is a 1 mana 2/1, so it's got really kind of push stats here. Very aggressive creature. The other thing here being is it has the ability to make those treasure tokens. A treasure token, you can go ahead, you can tap it, sacrifice it, and you net 1 mana of any color.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing ramps you incredibly aggressively. If you play this on turn 1 and you start attacking, and you might be able to get 2 treasure tokens off of this guy before your opponent starts to block it. And even in that, with it being a 2/1, they may not be able to block it profitably. If you're netting 2 mana off your 1-drop, you're doing fantastic. I am going to have a lot more to say for this guy whenever it comes to our commander preview, so I'm trying to kind of hold back my excitement for now because I think he's going to be wonderful there, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, I am 100% on board as him as a commander. But again, like you said, we'll jump into that when we get to those videos. Next up, we have Dermataxi. This is 2 generic mana for a 0/0. It's an artifact vehicle. It has imprint. As Dermataxi enters the battlefield, exile a creature card from a graveyard. Then it also says tap 2 untapped creatures you control. Until end of turn, Dermataxi becomes a copy of the imprinted card, except it's a vehicle, artifact in addition to its other types.
Yeah, I have no idea what to make of this. This is either like really, really good or really, really bad, and I don't know which one.
I think it's bad. Like, if you really want, I don't know, man. Like, you're expecting something. I mean, you could tutor it into your graveyard if you want to be something huge, you know? I get it. Yeah, it's either really good or really bad. I don't know. Taxidermy, Dermotaxi. It's weird, man.
Yeah,
It's
I don't.
it's weird that it's a vehicle that you can't crew.
it comes down. Well, I mean, you kind of crow it because you have to tap the two untapped creatures you control. So I mean, that's kind of the same act as crowing. It doesn't have like an actual crew number. It kind of has like an alternate stipulation on it.
But you're not crewing it. You're making a copy of something in the graveyard.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
a
you're
zero
making.
zero.
You're not even no. You're not making a copy of something in the grave. You're making a copy of something that was imprinted, which means that thing is just gone. It's exiled.
Yeah, something. Okay, something that
And
was in
which,
the graveyard.
yeah, I don't know. I think that this card is either really good or really bad, and I'm not smart enough to tell you which one. So it's one of those two extremes.
I'm gonna be honest. I think I talked to myself. I talked myself in. It's good.
All right. We're gonna do this flippy floppy back and forth thing here with Pumbaa. I don't know.
It's great. I love it. I love this card so much. Tutor something big into the graveyard. Play this on turn 2. Have some tokens. Just tap the tokens and become something giant.
There
I
you
love
go.
it. There you go.
Who needs to reanimate something whenever you have the fucking Pumbaa here, dude? You're gonna woolly mammoth that thing back into play.
Exactly. Go ahead and tell me what this is.
All right, here we go. Up next for 3 mana, we do have Academy Manufacturer. It is an artifact creature assembly worker, and it states if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, create one of each instead. It's a 1/3. Yeah, help me out.
This is terrible. Like I don't like. I guess if you really want a lot of clue, food, or treasures, is it? I mean, I get the treasure thing is cool. Like everyone wants treasures, but do you need food and clue? I guess. Okay. Let's say you've got a bunch of clue, food, and treasures. You're running an artifact deck. You've got all these things that you're making now, and then you can tap all those for mana. That'd be cool.
I don't know. I get the sense with this card that from a limited perspective, they were going out and they were trying to make these draft archetypes where they were like, okay, we have a creature that cares about clues, and we have this other thing that cares about food. Oh, and by the way, we also have this thing that cares about treasures. And then they were looking at their draft and they were like, well, shit, we need something that's going to support all of this. So they were like, well, let's just make this card that just supports all of those, all in one. And like none of them actually overlap. Like if you're making a bunch of clues, you probably don't care too much about the food or the treasures. Versus like if you're making a bunch of food, you probably don't care too much about the clues or the clues are like the treasure tokens. I don't know. I think that this card is cool. Like if you are like gung ho with artifact tokens and have a way to abuse this, that's dope. I definitely think the treasure tokens are the most powerful of the 3 options here. But I know that clues and food can still be solid options on their own. I feel like they don't normally overlap in the same kind of decks.
Yeah, I don't, it's a jumbled mess.
There we go. This card is a jumbled mess, and that's how we feel about it too.
He's an assembly worker, dude. He can only do so much.
Oh.
All right, moving on. What do we got?
All right, next up, we have Harmonic Prodigy. It is 1 and a red for a creature human wizard. It's a 1/3 with prowess, and it states that if an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So, I think this card is amazing. What are your thoughts on this one?
Anything that makes things trigger twice, I always am a fan of. So
Well,
yeah, I'm on board.
so my first thought on this is I read it and I was like, okay, well, shamans, that's really dope because like we just got this new ignoble hierarch, which would tap to make 2 mana instead of 1 mana, which is really dope. My other thought here immediately went to Burning Tree Emissary. So Burning Tree Emissary is a 2/2 for 2 mana that makes 2 mana whenever it enters the battlefield. This is now a 2 mana for 2, or it's a 2/2 for 2 mana that makes 4 mana whenever it enters the battlefield because it's going to have that ability to trigger another time. And I thought about all of that and I was like, oh my god, I'm in love with this card. And then I went back to reread this card just to make sure that everything was okay. And I totally missed the fact that it said Wizards on this card. And Wizards is one of the, I don't know, there are so many powerful wizards out there within the world of Magic that like this card seems incredibly abusable. and I can't wait to just get like so much, just tons of value off this card. I think that this card is a slam dunk. I can definitely see this thing in modern. I can definitely see this like not only jumping into a couple of already existing archetypes, I can see this potentially even just like making some new ones. I think this is a very, very powerful card.
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. I'm agreeing with a lot of its stuff tonight.
I know. I
Um,
even talked into Pumbaa. You need to disagree with me more. Fight me.
well, Harmonic Prodigy, I am a fan of it, man. Everything you just said, everything I said, triggering twice, shamans and wizards, you can't go wrong with them. They're great. I'm gonna let you take this one because I know you like this card.
I don't know if I can right now. So next up we have Lanus or Lonus, Cryptozoologist. It is a green and a blue. It's a legendary creature. It's a snake elf scout. It's a 1/2 that states whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, investigate. It also has tap it and sacrifice X clues. Target opponent reveals the top X cards of their library. You may put a non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield under your control. That player puts the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. All right. For modern, I don't know. I don't think this is very good. I don't think it has a home. For draft, this is your payoff for those assembly worker clues and like all of that silly shenanigans.
I love
I
clues.
I think that this card is pretty meh in those environments. Next, in about a week, we're going to talk about EDH, and that is a 100% different story that I'm going to talk about with this card. I am super, super excited for this card from a commander perspective, and we'll dive in with that later on. What are your thoughts for
Yes,
the time being, though?
absolutely. I would love to talk about EDH, but I'm not going to. I see this note here that says, "Try not to talk about EDH, David. Hide your excitement." uh, I think everything you said is true. The clue thing is going to be great in limited. A 2 mana for a 1/2 is always a little more difficult to get rid of. Then whenever, yeah, I, I love it. I like this
All
card a
right.
lot.
All right, Pete.
Cryptozoologist. It's great.
We're just one person tonight, guys.
We're
We're
one
merging
person.
together. We are just agreeing on everything.
Who needs
You
stuff?
you got to disagree with me at some point. Ah, damn!
All
The
right.
next card we're gonna agree on too. Shit. All right, you
Well,
read this one.
this next card is Esper Sentinel. It is 1 white for a 1/1. It's an artifact creature human soldier. It says whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card, unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. I would say that this card is bad. I don't like this card.
Oh my god, we're finally gonna disagree. I am so excited that you're not just gonna mimic me here.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of said bad because I know you're gonna say good, but I'm low key kind of happy about this card.
All right, we both fucking agree. This card is good. Whenever I read this card, my first thought here being is like, okay, this is White's version of a Rhystic Study. It comes down immediately. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't say a hate bear because it's not really shutting off any opponent's like deck or anything like that. But I mean, if they are casting non-creature spells, you're probably drawing cards off of this. At a very, very, very bare minimum, it's going to tax them for an additional 1 unless you're drawing a card. And if you do manage to pump this thing, it's going to it's going to start taxing them by an even larger amount. Now, this thing is not a legendary creature, so I can go ahead and I can talk about it here. I think this immediately slots into a lot of stack stacks in EDH. I think that if you are playing white, well, if you're playing white, you're already playing probably the best color whenever it comes to stacks. But I think that this just kind of immediately jumps in there. It's going to function somewhat similarly to Rhystic Study. It's going to most likely be able to draw you a couple of extra cards here and there. Now, important to note here is it's only going to trigger once per turn, so it's not quite as good as something like a Rhystic Study. But this thing drawing so much is just like a single card. It essentially cantrips. It replaces itself. And then if you are going to be able to draw like 2, 3, 4, or so forth and so on cards on that, this thing just gets insane value. I love this card. I think this card is really good in EDH. I think this thing might be Death and Taxes playable. So slam dunk here.
Yeah, I think this card's a slam dunk. Yeah, nobody likes to get taxed. Every time someone says, "Hey, you want to pay one extra for that?" I always pretty much say no.
I mean, that's the
unless
correct answer.
unless I have that one extra mana that I'm not gonna use. But that's even rare. Like you're gonna draw a card. That's fine. It's you're pretty much always gonna draw at least one card with that card.
Oh my god, I'm giving bad advice. I thought you were I misheard you. I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pay that extra one because that is the correct answer, damn it. Don't let them draw extra cards.
No, but I'm saying I hate paying that extra one. I don't wanna. All right, next up we got Solitude. Solitude is 2 white and 3 generic mana for a 3/2. It is another elemental incarnation. It's got flash, it's got lifelink. It also says when it enters the battlefield, exile up to one other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power. It also has Evoke, where you exile a white card from your hand.
Oh, we are totally gonna disagree on this card. All right, at least here we're gonna fight each other. You go
This
ahead and lead, and you try to convert me to your ways.
this is a Swords to Plowshare on a creature. Yeah, I think it's great. I love this card. If you have it in late game, past turn 5, flash it on your opponent's end step, exile their card, their creature. If you don't have any mana, just throw away a white card from your hand. You're probably running mostly white if you're running this card because of the 2 whites in the pay ability anyways. It's a free Swords to Plowshare if you just toss it out of your hand. No mana needed. Count me in.
I think this card is very overrated. I think it's very overhyped. I actually don't really know if I like this card.
They put it at Mythic for a reason, David.
They did. Okay, so you talk about rarities here. Rarity only means like it. Rarity essentially only impacts their draft format and whether or not they think this card is actually going to make money. Of which, yeah, sure, this card is going to make money for them. It's going to sell packs because people are going to look at this and they're going to have the same mentality that you just did, and they're going to jump on it and they're going to say, "Holy shit, Path!" I'm sorry, not Path. Swords to Plowshares is in Modern. I need to go up and I need to go pick up like 900 of these. I'm going to slot this in as a 4 of in every single white deck that I own, and then they're going to get home and they're going to slot it all in, and then they're going to take it out of their F&M and they're going to realize, wait a second, this is clunky as hell and doesn't work. All right. Here's my thing. If you are playing a Swords to Plowshares, you're probably playing something where the life total doesn't matter. For example, if you're playing a control deck, it doesn't matter what the hell your opponent's life total is because so long as you can lock them down, you're going to win the game. If you're playing in a combo-centric deck, same thing. If you can survive long enough to where your combo goes off, you're going to win the game. Both of those strategies typically try to accumulate card advantage over their opponent. This is a 2-for-1 Swords to Plowshares. You have to get rid of this, and you have to get rid of an additional card from your hand, specifically a white card, in order for you to evoke it. You're going to 2-for-1 whatever threat you're trying to get rid of. Now, the other little catch here being is that most control or combo decks that are utilizing white aren't mono white. Most of them are going to be white blue or white blue red for Jeskai or maybe Esper. You're utilizing several different colors. I don't think you're actually going to have a very large selection for what other white card you're going to be able to exile from your hand as often as what you think. And I think a lot of the time it's going to put you in a lot of really awkward situations where you really have to critically analyze, do you really want to 2-for-1 yourself here? Is your opponent's creature so much of a threat where you need to trade 2 cards to deal with that 1 card? Because you're going to be losing that card advantage, which is something that these kinds of decks win on the back of. I don't think that this card is super great. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this card is bad. I think this card still potentially has a home. I think this might be a solid 1 of. I don't think this is going to go in any deck as a 4 of. I would be very surprised to see this played as a 3 of. And I don't really even know if I would expect to see this as a 2 of in many decks. I think whenever it comes time to really boil this thing down, you're probably going to be playing it as a 1 of if you're playing it at all. And if you are able to actually hard cast Solitude, so you are paying the 5, then in that circumstance, it's great. Because at least in that case, you're not two for one yourself. This thing does have flash, it does have lifelink. So I mean, it's a decent creature, but you still had to spend 5 mana up on that, which I don't know. You could leave yourself tapped down. And I don't know. I would rather, if I'm going to play a control deck or a combo deck, I'd rather be able to keep a counter spell up or some other additional kind of removal.
I will say this. I wish this. All right, here's what this card would be a little better. If they made it 4 mana instead of 5. Or it was a 4/2 instead of a 3/2.
I mean, yeah, if they bump the stats on this, obviously it would be better. I think what a lot of people are doing right now is they're looking at it and they're saying, holy shit, Swords to Plowshares is a wonderful card. And here it is stapled onto a body. This body has a very real drawback that Swords to Plowshares does not have.
Yeah. I still love it. It's great and limited.
I disagree. I think it's probably really bad and limited. Don't 2 for your 1 yourself and limited. I think this is okay-ish in control and in combo. I think it's fine-ish in constructed. And if you're going to go play something like EDH, sure, shit this thing out. It only costs 5 mana. And if you're playing Commander, 5 mana is not a whole lot.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a couple of reprints. Let's do these couple of reprints real quick. We are starting with Solitary Confinement. Solitary Confinement is a reprint at 1 mana. Sorry, let me try this all over. First up, we got Solitary Confinement. Solitary Confinement is 1 white, 2 generic mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, sack Solitary Confinement unless you discard a card. Skip your draw skip. You have Shroud. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you.
It's janky.
It is janky.
Using the Squee combo, so you discard Squee because you can cast Squee from your graveyard. I'm sorry, different Squee. There's 2 Squees. All right. So using the Squee combo with this card, you can potentially create an indefinite Shroud and prevent all damage just indefinitely. Your opponent just needs to get rid of this card. Just kill off an enchantment and the problem goes away. Super janky. I can see a world in which this potentially does something, though.
I guess so. Here's another reprint. This is Sterling Grove. This is 1 green, 1 white for another enchantment. Other enchantments you control have Shroud. It also says pay 1, sack Sterling Grove, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, shuffle, put that card on top.
Drop this in your Solemnity deck. Solemnity deck. Ooh, that's a hard word to say this late at night. Drop this in your Solemnity deck. Play this with like your 9 lives, or I forgot what the name of the card is. I should know this. I think it's like a Core Set 2020, or I don't know. It's the one with the cats. It gives your enchantments Shroud, and it helps you to go also find your enchantment lock pieces.
We got enchantments, dude. The Enchantress theme is coming through. Speaking of Enchantress, we have Enchantress's Presence. And that is 1 green, 2 generic mana for another enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card.
It's a dope reprint. I think this is way too slow for modern. It's definitely a build around me card whenever it comes to limited and draft. If you are looking to pick this up for just the fact that it is a reprint, I mean, this thing, if you're playing an enchantment based deck in EDH, you probably already happen to have this card unless you're not playing green. I mean that's what I got.
It's just enchantments, man. That's what we got here.
All right. Here next we have several cards that I put down on my notes as just being god awful. I hate everything else moving forward, but maybe Hunter here can convince me otherwise.
All right, we'll start with Upheaval. Upheaval is 2 blues, 4 generic mana for a sorcery. Return all permanents to their owner hand. That is a super cyclonic.
Okay. See, like here's where I can tell that you read Reddit because I saw that exact same comment and I looked at it and I read it and I was like, no, it's not. Cyclonic Rift solves the problem of like all of my opponent's shit. This bounces my stuff. And it says all permanents, not even non-land. It bounces my lands. I don't want to do this. This is basically like, let's go ahead and restart the game where I can start playing my lands all over again. You can start recasting all of your spells, and let's sit here for like an extra 30, 45 minutes as we try to relive the glory days of turns like 1 through 6 with this thing. I hate this card.
Yeah, this card's not good. I don't know who would play this. Just like this would go in a troll deck, man. It's like, hey guys, let's start the game over.
This is the very specific scenario, okay? You're playing a white blue EDH deck. You go ahead and you cast Teferi. No, I don't even know if that works actually. I was gonna say you cast Teferi's Protection and then you cast Upheaval. I don't think that works though, because I'm pretty sure Teferi's Protection, you're just gone. Maybe actually, you know what? No. I'm sorry. This is what you do. You cast Upheaval, and then with Upheaval still on the stack, then you cast Teferi's Protection. So Teferi's Protection, you phase out, then Upheaval hits the stack. Upheaval, if it resolves, gets rid of all of those pesky opponent permanents, including all of their lands, because that's just what this card does. And then you phase back in all nice and happy with all of your lands and artifacts and enchantments intact, and then like your opponents are just screwed.
I'm gonna be honest. That'd be dream scenario if that happened.
That
I
is
think
also like
that's a
10
win the
mana.
game.
Yeah. In which, don't play this card. There's other things you could be doing that are significantly better.
What do we got next, David?
Oh boy. You know, I had to read this next card like 7 times before I fully just kind of came to the grasp of how bad this thing is. This next one is Pure the Volatile. It is 2 generic, 2 red, 2 white, 2 black. Jesus Christ, that mana cost. It's a legendary creature, Elder Dragon. It's a 7/7 with flying and lifelink, and it states that at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Pure the Volatile unless you pay a red, a white, and a black. Whenever it dies, it deals 7 damage to each non-legendary creature. Whew, boy. This thing is very expensive, and it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, it really doesn't like at all. Like it's 8 mana for a 7/7, and then you have to pay to keep it around. It
It
only has
taxes
flying.
you.
Yeah, you have to pay to keep it around. It only has flying and lifelink. And then when it dies, it does damage to non-legendaries, which most of the time people are mostly running legendaries in
Oh,
modern.
no,
Or just
not in modern, but in EDH, they're mainly going to be running legendaries, which this doesn't affect. If you're playing this in modern, it's a different story because it actually probably will nuke their board.
but you're not.
But
It's impossible to cast.
it's impossible to cast. So you have to be able to reanimate this somehow, and then you just don't pay for the tax on it. This is really cool in that they did a nod to the original Elder Dragons, Nicobolus and Arcades and Chromium and all that kind of fun stuff, and that it has the same kind of templating design. So that is dope. If you are a fan of those cards, that's cool. This is cool. Everything about this card is just crap. There's nothing about this that I like.
And a quick call out to Shane. Shane, Kalia can cheat this in because it's a dragon.
There you go. It's in the same colors too, although you probably don't want this card.
Speaking of dragon, we have Obsidian Charmaw. This is 2 red, 3 generic mana for a 4/4. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land your opponent controls that could produce colorless mana.
And it specifically has the colorless mana symbol here.
It does. It has flying. When Obsidian Charmaw enters the battlefield, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. So it's a big Tron hater, but that's pretty much it.
It's a big Tron hater, my ass.
Hey man, it's you get this in for 2 mana, right? And then
Okay, yeah, I'm listening.
And then it's a 4/4 flyer for 2 mana, and when it enters, destroy one of the better lands from the Tron decks.
Oh yeah. So let me get this straight. All you need to do is have your opponent fully assemble Tron, and then the thing gets reduced down to 2 mana, which never mind the fact that, they probably just dropped, I don't know, Karn against you, which this isn't going to do jack shit to. This card is awful.
Yeah, it's really bad. I don't. Some of the cards they put at these rarities is just like head scratchingly bad.
I mean, they as I've already mentioned once in this video, they put the cards at specific rarities based off of how often they want them to pop up in limited. If you are playing limited, a 5-mana 4/4 with flying is already pretty good. A 5-mana 4/4 with flying that has the potential of nuking one of your opponent's non-basic lands is super dope. You're
But
probably never going to be able to actually reduce this thing in cost, and in constructed, this thing is awful.
yeah. What's next, David?
All right, next up here we have Persist. It is 1 and a black for a sorcery at rare. It says target a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard, return it to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. It literally does persist. It does its namesake. Oh boy. I don't like the fact that this thing says non-legendary because the big baddies that you would typically want to be reanimating are legendary.
Hey, you just
So
said Modern doesn't run legendaries. You just said that.
okay. Look, if you are running a reanimator deck, you're probably trying to cheat things in like Gristlebrand, which is very much a legendary creature.
Yeah, I'm just giving you shit.
I know.
I mean,
Okay.
it's a
That big
cheap
dragon.
reanimator that hurts the thing that comes back.
I don't even care about the -1/-1 counter on it, to be honest with you. It's just the fact that it says non-legendary here. It's not going to be able to hit the majority of things that I do want to be able to reanimate. Um, I could potentially still see a world in which this actually does see play. But I'm not a fan of it personally.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll see if modern players get creative with this, but I don't see this being in play at all besides modern. Like, this is not going to go in EDH. Yeah. We'll see.
Ooh. I don't know. I think this might, if you're building a reanimator deck in EDH, just because I mean, like the quality of reanimation spells, and I think we brought this up in another video too, is like there's really, I don't know. Never mind. I retract my statement. I still think there's better things that you could be doing. Never mind. I disagree with myself. Next up, moving on. Last
Well,
card that we're going to be talking
last
about.
but not least, we have Calibrated Blast. Calibrated Blast is a 1 red, 2 generic mana for an instant. It states, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Put the reveal card on the bottom of your library in a random order. When you reveal a non-land card this way, Calibrated Blast deals damage equal to that card's mana value to any target. It also has flashback for 2 red and 3 generic mana.
No.
Yeah, you're taking a big risk on something that might not happen.
So these kinds of cards where it's like reveal until you hit A, typically they can be okay because you are allowed to you're allowed to build your deck around these things. This just says a non-land. So I mean, if you hit an artifact, if you hit another copy of this, if you hit, I don't know, the big beefy thing that you were actually aiming for, there's just a lot of variability here.
You just go, yay, I hit. Oh, that was my 2-drop that I was looking for.
I mean, there you go. And in which case you just spent 3 mana to deal 2 damage. Now, if you are doing this and you don't, I don't know, if you are doing this, I mean, I can see some circumstances where it's like, yeah, you just got lucky where you just instant speed hit an opponent for 7 mana for 3, or I'm sorry, for 7 damage for 3 mana. That's fine. That's great. But I don't see that happening in the majority of circumstances.
Yeah, this card is terrible. This might be the worst card I've seen tonight. So that's today's spoilers. That was a long video. What do you think? Today is the third. No, today's the fourth day. Fourth day spoilers. We're almost done.
Yeah, today's the 4th day. Definitely not almost done.
Thoughts on today's spoilers? Was it better than the last?
I think that actually we are progressively getting better and better.
Yeah, Modern Horizons 2 turning out to be a powerhouse, slowly but surely. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. hit that like button if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below. Follow us on Instagram at instagram.com/guys@magic for all spoilers, not just the rares and mythics. And we hope you have a great day. This is Guys That Magic.
Later.
Bye.